Here on Unexplained Mysteries, we have investigated many puzzling stories, such as ancient civilizations, alien visitations, and ghostly manifestations. In this week's episode, we bring you a very unusual mystery. Each year, thousands of people disappear without a trace. This is one such story involving 3 individuals from the Department of Psychology at Banbury University. They were sent on a research field trip by the head of their department, Dr. Turley. They were to study the effects of popular entertainment culture on individuals and groups, or in layman's terms, how TV can warp some people's minds. In this part of the study, the researchers went to the town of Poole, situated on England's southern coast, site of the second largest natural harbor in the world. They went to interview members of the Poole Vampire Society, a group who claimed they were real vampires, and thus of great interest to the researchers. However, the researchers never returned from their field trip, and Dr. Turley called in the police. Detectives visited the guest house where the researchers were staying. They found a video diary made by team leader Dr. Catherine Miles, which detailed her studies into the Vampire Society. This, in turn, directed officers to this house in the Hamworthy district of Poole, where they found videotapes shot by the department's technician Richard Juriez. The tapes contained interviews with the vampires conducted by Dr. Miles. They also found a copious amount of field notes taken by Dr. Miles' assistant, Sharon Woodward. Most shocking of all, a video camera was found in a nearby meadow by a local dog walker. This contained a videotape shot by a member of the vampire group on a university camcorder. Despite the police finding all this documentary and video evidence, no trace of the Banbury University researchers has ever been found.
I blame myself. It was me that sent them on that assignment. I should have known something wasn't right. I should have checked it out. All I have is the copy of the video that the police have given me.
My senior research fellow, Dr. Turley, has now received an ESRC grant, which means that we're able to now pursue the research into the effects of popular entertainment culture on individuals and on groups. Now, my part of the research is to film a video document about the Vampire Society in Poole. I'll be working alongside my assistant Sharon and the department's technician Richard. Now, they've already met up with the vampire group, and as a result they've obtained some footage already.
Crap. Can't we take another technician away with us? He's totally useless.
He's the only one we've got, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I got the button pressed now.
Yeah, right. They're very engrossed in the role play, and that is all we saw while we were there. They were in role the whole time. We never got any insight into the real people. They just stayed in character the whole time, didn't they? It's quite...
Well, yeah, they seem to be really hamming it up, you know what I mean?
It was quite strange, really.
Sharon Woodward's field research notes recovered from the house in Poole contained an astonishing amount of detailed evidence of what occurred during that fateful weekend. According to the notes, the research team decided right at the beginning to play along with the vampire group's fantasies. And I quote, "We decided to enter the vampire group's world on their own terms."
I'll tell you what, if you give us the camera, then me and some of my mates, we might film some stuff. Might not, but we will do a little. it might be enough for your little study, but I can't show you too much.
I don't know what you think about that.
I think that's probably a reasonable idea. To be honest, we'll get more of a. I guess we'll just be able to see what they actually do, and without us being there, hopefully they'll be less inhibited by it as well. So, what do you think, Richard? Have we got a camera they can use?
Well, I don't really want to give them one of the good ones, but there's that really old one we've got. I mean, it still works.
It still works. Okay. Well, that's fine then. If we can let them have that one. Yeah.
I'll have to show them how to use it though.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Put that down there. There's a few focusing on that. Point it right at that Toby jug there.
Come on, you know it's my turn to have the pendulum now.
Oh, come on, you're a bad excuse for a vampire anyway. It was mine originally!
This new bitch, it's the only chance I get to go in the daylight.
Hey, I need this so I can go see Dr. Miles tomorrow. Without this, I can't go out in the sun.
Don't worry about it, because you're not seeing Dr. Miles. I'll look after this. Well, if you think it's so hot, why don't you go wandering around in the daylight and see how much of a flaming effect you
right
have on
now,
your
or I'll
personality.
take you apart.
Screw you, mate.
Okay, this is Morgan Fay.
I was living in a cave at the time with my mother. My mother was burnt at the stake and she was a witch, and I was a witch as well.
Hello, Dr. Catherine Miles. Pleased to meet you. Thank you. You've met Richard and Sharon, I believe, haven't you, my assistant technician?
Yeah.
So, starting with you, Morgan Fay. There's been considerable documentation about vampires living throughout Europe, also China, Russia. Why are you in Poole?
Poole's a port. Lots of ships come over from various places. We find, as vampires, travelling by sea's better. We stay in the dark, keep out of other people's way. Nobody sees us. We blend into the background nicely.
Has Poole any significance to vampires?
Well, it all stems back to a guy in the 18th century who was called Doggett. He lived with a guy who's his master, and he did his master wrong, and his master tried to get him, but he ends up shooting himself in the head and was later buried in the nearby churchyard in the 18th century. And later the grave was exposed. There was no body found at this time, it disappeared.
So you live with other vampires. Is there a reason for this?
We don't all get on together, but there's a very strong hold between us all. And I myself feel that they need me to look over them.
Oh yeah, I mean they found them really creepy. I thought they were probably all on drugs actually.
Richard, we don't want that kind of comment, okay? I don't want to hear that, because we've already got preconceptions about what vampires are about anyway. So I'd appreciate if you kept those kind of comments to a minimum.
Alright, I'll give
Please.
you my shit.
It's not really very
No.
helpful.
They're not vampires.
No, they're not vampires.
No. Anyway.
Where's our guest house then?
Oh, it's down back that way, but the road's closed, so we're going to have to try and find a way around the one-way system somehow. Typical.
Okay.
Shall I pull off? Hang on, I've got to wait for this old girl to go by. But it looks alright, doesn't it? Maybe there's a pub there, quite a good pub there.
What's that?
After we film these bloody vampires, we're going down there. I'll need a drink after that, I tell you.
He calls himself Jean-Pierre, claims that he was an alchemist in the year 1452.
Alchemists, we study the base metals, only chemistry and science. But lots of us, we were looking for eternal life, eternal youth. I found it. It's not all that, really, you'd ever want.
Okay, so you, Jean-Pierre, as an alchemist then, presumably your beliefs would be based on science, fact. Why then search for eternal youth?
Why not? You must remember, I lived in the 13th century. Nothing was impossible. You've got to take away all the knowledge that you've gained over the past 400 years. And that way, you have our perspective.
From an everyday point of view, vampires are seen as fictional. How did you feel when you realised that they actually existed?
Fictional? Well, we also believed in fantastical creatures. I mean, mermaids, sailor stories, the spirits, underworld. They were all part of everyday life. Superstition, you call it now. But no, they could have existed, and I found it. I was looking for a new apprenticeship. My old master died, and so I found another, and he offered me eternal life.
You don't seem to be very happy. Surely you can just bring yourself out of it.
Bring myself out of it? Since it happened, I've been trying to reverse it. I've studied science. There is no other way. Death. Death is the only way. And the only real way to do that is to walk out in the sunshine. I mean, how the would you like that? Burning life? Jesus Christ.
Jean.
Sharon's notes refer specifically to this incident with Jean-Pierre. Dr. Miles was very worried about his reaction. She felt her slight challenge to his fantasy of being a vampire with a death wish displayed a dangerous level of psychosis in this individual.
I have to say I'm getting a bit confused about this assignment, a bit uncomfortable with it all.
He calls himself Carliath. Okay. Claims that he's been a vampire since the year 1122. Admittedly, he looks well for his age.
I was hiding in a cupboard. My folks invited this guy in. He was soaking wet from the rain. He came in, sat down to a meal. I was still hiding in the cupboard. Sister still couldn't find me. What happened was I couldn't scream. He just tore him to pieces. I couldn't even scream. I got a very good look at him, and I said, I'm going to kill him.
So, Carliath, is there any way you can go out in daylight?
Well, direct sunlight, no. But the younger of us can go out with a little sun cream, perhaps, and last a short time out in the sun.
Sorry, I don't understand. Why is it that younger vampires are more resilient to daylight than older vampires?
That would be due to age. Because a young vampire is still actually in their own human lifespan, they still have human tendencies, albeit the sunlight. I've lived nearly 900 years. I've lived several lifetimes. I no longer can go out in the sun.
So, we understand that to protect ourselves from vampires as humans, we need to use things like holy water and garlic.
Garlic. I actually quite like garlic myself. But as to other vampires, it just depends on the individual. Holy water will not burn the skin if you don't believe in Christianity. The inviting a vampire into your home is basically a superstition that was invented in the 12th, 13th century. It was to make the peasantry feel a little bit more secure in their lives.
Does a vampire's reflection show up in the mirror?
Only if you want it to.
Sharon's notes state that she is convinced that members of the vampire group are using hypnotism on her and possibly other members of the team. Sharon's notes catalogs in detail periods of time that she maintains went missing. She also complains of unexplained headaches and anxiety attacks.
Okay, this character calls himself Scary Mike.
Original?
It's original, yeah. He claims that he's only been a vampire for 7 years. The incident took place when he was returning from Bristol from a fencing tournament that he was taking part in.
Took my sabre with me, ran down the car park, straight into a bunch of 4 or 5 people laying into this young lady. She looked really scared, so I jumped in the middle of it, punched one bloke, waved the sword menacingly at the others, and the girl managed to run away. That was about as far as it got. Clumped from behind, I went down. Next thing I know, I'm awake. I'm in a rather strange building.
I need this so I can go see Dr. Miles tomorrow.
Prior to going to Poole to interview the vampires, Sharon spent many hours on the internet, exploring the myriad of obscure vampire sites. Just try typing the word vampire into any search engine, and you will see for yourself. On one such site, she notes the myth of the pendulum of Valletta, a magic item that allowed vampires to go out in the daylight. She also believes that the Poole vampire group knew of this legend, and were acting out a fantasy of having it in their possession.
Is there such thing as a slayer?
No.
Sharon's research notes also refer to a vampire legend of the Slayer, a man who hunts down and kills vampires. On one vampire website we found this picture, together with a warning for vampires to avoid this man at all costs. We had experts examine this photo. They are in no doubt that this is the same man filmed by vampire group member Jean-Pierre on the researcher's camcorder.
Ah, you mean the Torquemada in the Spanish Inquisition? They all died a long time ago. The Catholic Church commissioned Torquemada to find out how to kill vampires. It was quite clever. It took him 9 months to find out how to do it. You skin them alive, you flay them, you pull them limb from limb, decapitate them, then you burn the remains. Of course, he neglected to mention that this would kill anybody.
Right now, or I'll take you apart.
Screw you, mate.
Come on then, I'll take you apart.
You know I'm a sod.
Come on, you two, break it up. I sense a slayer.
You drain the victim of blood until their heart is almost stopped, and then find a vein of your own, cause it to be opened, get them to drink it, the natural body will die, and over the course of time they'll become a vampire.
It's an overpowering pain. It's not in the stomach, it's all over. It's like shaking, you can't concentrate, you can't sleep, you can't do anything until you feed, and then you find you can't stop yourself from feeding.
Well, while my colleagues were in Poole, I was attending a conference in Manchester on the effects of cartoon violence on children. When I came back, I found this on my answer machine.
Dr. Turley, please pick up. Are you there? I really need to speak to you. I've just gone crazy. They're controlling us. I've got to get away. I think it might be too late.
What on earth was going on there?
Mike, vampires are often seen as sexy or sexual. Why do you think this is?
It's the concept, it's the domination, it's the presence, it's being able to know that you have the power to touch a woman and know that she'll like it. It's the bite, it's the intimacy, it's the black knight coming into the lady's boudoir at night.
Vampires are often seen as bisexual. Or at least it's implied, anyway. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's only recently that it's become so taboo. In ancient times, Greeks and Romans weren't considered men until they had a boy. It's the rise of Catholicism that has made society so homophobic. I am not bisexual, but I can also say that I'm not that choosy.
Vampires are often seen as seducers, Mike. Are you a seducer? I've just had a really bad disagreement with Sharon and Richard. Sharon has basically accused me of being unprofessional towards a particular member of the group. But this particular member actually noticed that I was upset, so he asked me what was wrong, and so I told him. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, really.
So can you see the levels? Can you see the levels?
Yeah.
Because I can't hear a thing.
There's something I've got to tell you. You should leave here.
What?
These aren't good people. I can't explain why at the moment, but it's best that you leave.
Why? What's the problem?
What's going on here?
We're having problems with the sound level.
Sorting it out.
What have you been telling these people? Answer me. What have you been saying to them?
How the camera works.
I think you better go. I'm just getting very short-tempered. Go. Now.
What's going on?
Sharon's final entry in her notebook tells of Dr. Miles being too fatigued to continue with the interviews. However, Sharon states that she is feeling energetic, almost euphoric, and that she will take over the interviewing.
Okay, so where do you get your blood from then?
We have a friend down at Poole General who's very accommodating.
With the blood.
With whatever we need.
So I assume that means that we're safe here, are we?
You're very safe.
Am I?
Look at your rings, they're amazing.
They were my mother's.
Really?
You're amazing too.
Do you think so?
Oh, yes. Very.
Do you have to film everything?
I'm not terribly keen on talking about this really, but it's part of what we are.
Are you alright?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
I think we probably need to make a move now, okay? We need to go soon.
Okay.
Alright.
Okay. I think Sharon and Richard disapprove of me. They didn't come back to the guest house last night. And I've been asleep all day and nobody's woken me up. I know somebody who can help me. I'm going to go and see him later.
The university camera given to Jean-Pierre was found in a nearby meadow. These are the final images on the tape. Police found traces of blood near the camera, but no bodies were ever found. Well, we promised you a very unusual mystery. A mystery that remains unsolved despite the abundance of video and documentary evidence. A mystery that may prove vampires exist in present-day England. We give the final word, though, to Dr. Turley.
The police didn't know what to make of it. The case still remains open, but despite all their investigations, Catherine, Richard and Sharon are still missing. The only member of the vampire group that detectives could identify was Mike Twist. He'd been reported missing 8 years ago by his mother. All I know is that I have lost 3 valuable members of staff and no one can give me a rational explanation for it. Somebody must know something. People don't just disappear, do they?